Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and I finally figured out how to salvage my lost Facebook notes after Facebook cruelly got rid of them in 2020. Not only got rid of them, but even removed the tab on my status that allowed me to view all of my notes. I had to go onto this public Facebook page to click a link to show the activity log of all of my notes. So at least they're not gone forever. So before the big purge happened, I copied and pasted the ones that I actually liked and popped them in a note. So I managed to include all of my mission trip notes, and now I will be able to share them with you. Now, some of you might be thinking, now, Paul, you've gone on and on about your mission trips in several videos. What more could you possibly have to add? Well, you'll be glad to know that upon rereading these Facebook notes, I discovered quite a few details that even I had forgotten about over the years. So I can promise you, if you're watching this and you love hearing funny and or insightful stories, you'll definitely get a few more here. So I am, just as a heads up, I am not going to be reading these notes 100% verbatim because they were written right after I got back from the mission trip, and 13 years younger Paul wasn't always the most. He said some weird and cringy things. So for the sake of this flowing better, I'll probably do a little bit of embellishing, and I'll probably change the words and not say certain things. But for the most part, this is going to be 2010 Paul speaking, if only I had a vintage filter or something like that. So without further ado, let's get started. The note starts off, which was kind of a tradition at the time, of me describing the people that came with me to the trip. And those people were Julie, two Michaels, Rachel, Tim, Lexi, Cece, John, Kyle, Katie, Valentina, and Joanna. In my work group, I had Julie, Rachel, two Emilys, Ryan, and Jay. I also met several other awesome people that I met that I will remember for. That's terrible grammar. I said match twice. So the next part of the note is describing the length of the trip as well as the retreat center that we stayed at. So don't panic too much. It's only one little part of the note. Then we'll get on to what it meant to me and all that. We woke up at 7:30 in the morning and drove until around 1:30 to the Bishop Lane Retreat Center in Rockford, Illinois. After a brief subway break, we arrived at our destination. It was very similar to the Steubenville Youth Conference. The main room had a stage, tons of special effects lights, a huge screen, and over 250 chairs. In the back of the room were tables, drinking fountains, and counters. Each group had a designated snack area, and our group had dill pickle flavored Pringles, which was my suggestion, by the way. And there were also stands selling various merchandise, most of it related to the band called Popple, which I will talk about later. There were also some doors on the sides of the hall leading to the dorms and showers. The grounds were also very nice. There was a forest with numbers on signs at various intervals, similar to what we Catholics call Stations of the Cross, and there was a concrete pathway that led to an open area with a basketball net, a dumpster, a shed, and this strange pit that a frisbee got stuck in that we never recovered. As we walked further, there was a small building where the staff and adult chaperones met, and a frisbee got stuck on the roof of that building as well. Those poor frisbees! But luckily the staff was able to get this frisbee down. The path then split into two directions. To the left was a hilly area that led to another house and this huge building that the girls slept in. There was also a chapel, plus the kitchen area, which wasn't very distinctive, except for the huge tree that I could see from the window, and it was a very vivid green. I also remember the floor as being a very nice texture, but I don't really know how to describe it to you because I didn't take any pictures of the cafeteria. I don't think I took any pictures at all because I didn't have a camera back then. The other path led to the main entrance to the girls' dorm building, and across from it was a statue of Mary. It was in front of this statue that our group took a video of a huge game of rock, paper, scissors, and I think we won too. Once I walked past it, I found a huge field where teens played frisbee, soccer, volleyball, and football. Plus, I saw a small lake, plus a bridge over a stream of running water. There was even a tree that was so slanted that I could walk up it. Finally, at the entrance to the grounds was a statue of Jesus and some other people that I presume were his parents. By my standards, that was a pretty short explanation of the surroundings. Next up is talking about the dorms. After sleeping in dorms 8 times in my life, I'm honestly not sure how I got the number 8 because I only remember more like 4. So I don't know what 2010 Paul was thinking. I have finally gotten used to them, but this one had all the others beat. There were 3 bunk beds, 4 regular beds, and a mattress on the floor for me to sleep on. It was actually my own choice that I slept on the floor, well, put the mattress on the floor specifically, because I originally could have slept in one of the beds, but I decided that I wanted to have my own space. There were also 3 lockers, one of which contained a device for playing iPod music. I totally forgot about this. Also, this was 2010, so iPods were much more of a rage than they are now. We spent a lot of our free time just hanging out in the room and chatting with each other. I slept in this room with every guy in our group, plus another group slept on the other side. So the way Catholic Heart is structured is that they have it so that the adults and teenagers sleep in the same room, just not in the same beds. But if the adults are particularly picky about being in the same room as the teenagers, they're asked to sleep outside the room in a sleeping bag. None of the adults on this trip were particularly picky, and nothing really happened. Although, something that I didn't write in this note, one thing that happened was one time a girl snuck into the room, and thankfully I was the one that reported it to the staff so that they could say, "Yo, at a teenage camp, don't be doing that." So hopefully they learned their lesson from there. Many funny moments took place in this room, and I really downplayed it in this note. At one point, Alex took a spearmint branch and stuffed it into Cody's sleeping bag. When he climbed into the sleeping bag, he said, "Alex, you smell like a pine tree." We all started laughing, and he finally figured out what the smell was. He then did the same thing to Sawyer's pillow. There was also a running joke with the deodorant. The guys from the other group sprayed the stuff so much that John took it and hid it in the ceiling. Sadly, he had to take it back out, and one of the camp staff members was walking by because apparently the door was open and shouted at him that he was climbing in the ceiling. But we got a good laugh when we imagined the look on the other guys' faces. Another funny moment was when we were always woken up by a guy named Tim playing a trumpet. And finally, 2 different nights, I forgot that it was 2, I thought it was just 1, some group of boys barged into the dorm hallway carrying a boombox and a strobe light. And I remember I had to knock on my door furiously several times to get the other guys in my room to realize that it was me and not the mob trying to ruin everyone's night. The next section is called the main order of the program, so this should be one of the most fun parts to all of you. Every night, the CHWC staff, CHWC stands for Catholic Heart Work Camp, by the way, put on a program for all of us, which was very similar to the general sessions at the conferences that I had been to in high school. When the program was about to start, they played fantastic music and footage from previous mission trips. And in future mission trips, they actually played footage of this mission trip, which I was really amazed at. And although the activities varied depending on the day, they followed the same general pattern. 2 of the staff members, one of them was named Andrew, came onto the stage dressed in camouflage clothes and said to each other, "Hey, Carpenter Commando!" They then said to us, "Hey, Carpenter Commandos in training!" We then had to salute them and say, "Hey, Carpenter Commando," back to them, and I think I still remember the salute. I have to stand up a bit for it to work, but I believe you go, "Hey, Carpenter Commandos." Yeah, I still got it. We were a little rocky at first, but we received huge applause once the final night came around. They also had different training exercises, most of them just to have a friendly competition with the guys and girls. Oh, the pre-woke times, how I miss those. One of them involved jump roping, swallowing salmon juice and spitting it into a cup, and placing their heads on a baseball bat and twirling around while counting to 10 in Spanish. Another activity involved the volunteers blowing eggs onto a square using only pizza boxes. I think that was actually an adult-only activity, too, to make it even more fun. And the losers got egg on their heads. And finally, I was picked for one of the last activities that I remember. Here's another thing that I had forgotten until reading this note. We were each given tissue boxes with straps to tie them behind us. The staff members placed ping pong balls inside them and asked us to get them out without using our hands and with our backs turned to the audience. There were 2 winners, including myself, though they taped up one of the boxes so that he would automatically lose, and I think they forgot to fill one of the girls' boxes. I don't remember how I knew that. I think it was because it showed up on the summary DVD that I had purchased, or maybe I just heard the Carpenter Commandos shouting. Another staff member came onto the stage every night and pretended to be Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, with the theme song and the shoe and shirt changing routine to go with it. He gave us basic neighborly advice and showed videos which showed footage of the exact opposite advice. I guess you could say he was using reverse psychology. He also gave out Good Neighbor awards to specific teenagers, and during the final night, my brother was picked. He also designated certain parishes to help with the cleanup every night. They also showed photos of that particular parish's work sites. I don't think our parish was ever designated for cleanup, though we were next year. During one night, they had a birthday celebration, and to commemorate the occasion, they played Just Dance for the Wii. Nowadays, that sounds super retro, but again, this was 2010. This was like mind-blowing revolutionary techniques back then. Basically, the contestants had to mimic the dance motions shown on the screen with their Wii remotes. It was hilarious to watch, although the music wasn't exactly to my liking. Then again, in the very next sentence, I say that the music was fantastic, so I need better sentence structure. 2010, Paul. The music was fantastic. I'm not ready to determine whether it was better than Steubenville or not. It was. But I can say that it had a lot more variety. There was hip-hop, rap, DDR, Dance Dance Revolution, style music, guitar and drums combos, silly songs like I Love Peanut Butter Sandwiches and Freebird, and a few familiar songs from my youth group, such as Days of Elijah and Undignified. The main music group was called Popple, and it composed of 2 men called Kyle and Dan. Their drummer, Corey, also gave fantastic speeches, which I will describe in the miscellaneous funny moments segment of this chapter. And funnily enough, when I went to NCYC the following year, Popple actually recognized me, which is wild because there were 300 people at that particular camp, and NCYC had 23,000 people. So out of 23,000 people, they managed to spot me and remember me after they had been on tour for like 5 different camps that in the previous year. So they somehow kept that knowledge of me throughout all of the touring madness. I actually have seen Popple quite a few more times since then because Dan, one of the members of the group, was the keynote speaker at one of the wind conferences we put on, and I saw him at the other NCYC, actually I think both of the other NCYCs I went to. Mass was celebrated every day. It was not as long as the average Mass, and the homilies never lasted over 2 minutes. But they got right to the point and weren't long, winding, and boring. In fact, I actually remember 2 of the homilies very vividly. One of them was on the summary DVD, so I cheated a bit. That particular one, the priest was talking about how he wanted us to be the hands and feet of Jesus during the week by doing the service, and so we were like an extension to the service Jesus performed when he walked the earth as a human. The other homily was when he said, "I have a few short words I'd like to say from I'd like to say a few short words from St. Francis of Assisi. Do good, don't do evil." And then he sat back down, and then he got back up after a couple of minutes. I was like, no, I'm just joking. Because at a Catholic Mass, it's customary for the priest to sit down for a few minutes after his homily, and then after he stands up again, it's a signal to the parishioners that it's time to profess our faith. So we were all like just waiting for the moment when he'd be like, okay, time to profess our faith, because we legitimately thought that was the end of the homily. And also, this is that same priest who had the deadpan look on his face, and when he announced that the trumpet had been stolen, all of us cheered, and then with that same deadpan look said, let us not forget that it was a trumpet that brought down the walls of Jericho. They got us really pumped to serve others and make a difference in our community. Yeah, I definitely felt it that particular day. It also helped that Popple remade the familiar Mass songs with the guitar and drums, although again, this was 2010, the year before Pope Benedict XVI, rest in peace, rewrote the English lyrics to the Novus Ordo Mass, so we still said the weird old stuff like "and also with you" instead of "and with your spirit." Working! We were divided into groups based on age and experience level, and after we answered a few questions to get to know each other better, we were ready to work. Although I missed most of the first workday due to not feeling good after the first Mass, I still did a lot of work. Actually, I was feeling so lousy that during the announcements after Mass, I literally had to run out of the aisle, tripped over one of the chairs, had to quickly pick up my bag, rush to the bathroom. Then my brother came in to tell me that I had dropped another one of my bags, only then for the camp to say that I should just like sleep in the dorm room and uh, just wait for me to get better and hopefully I'd be improved by the time the programs ended. But thankfully, I got better really quickly and I had a really good nap too, which was great. So then I asked the staff to drive me to the project and then I was able to work like half a day. So it still worked out pretty well. Also, another cool thing about that that excursion of me getting sick is that my friend Rachel, who's actually a nurse, she said that she thought that it was actually an anxiety attack and not heat stroke. So that should go to show you how much this trip really changed me, because this was before meeting Monica and Reba that I got sick. So they really changed my life to get me to not be so worried about this camp. On the first day, I polished a woman's shelves and helped wipe the floors and windows. I still do that at my job. And I still remember the woman's name, too, because she autographed my notebook. Her name is Estella. During break time, we sat in an indoor porch, and I found a couch. I immediately sat on it and said, I don't believe in love at first sight, but I do believe in love at first sit. John went absolutely wild when I told him the joke for the first time, and I was honored when Monica told Reba about it as well, something I didn't think anyone has ever done with my jokes, and to this day they still don't really do that. During the next 3 days, we worked at a daycare center called Maya's House from 9 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. It is very similar to a former job I had as an assistant occupational therapist. I ran around with the kids. We had mock school sessions. We played board games such as Hungry Hippos and Candyland, did arts and crafts, watched movies, and plenty of fun stuff. One of the movies we watched was The Lion King, and Emily, one of the teenagers in our group, actually was enjoying it more than the kids did. Because she was a huge Disney nerd, and whenever we would start singing a Disney song, she'd always get so excited about it. I also got to relive my old school days and have lunch on the little tables and wash my hands in a sink that was clearly designed for little kids. During the final day, Ryan and I got to play the guitar. He was even able to play part of the tricky solo from Freebird, something that I never thought was possible on a regular guitar. And one of the songs that I played was, oh shoot, I'm forgetting the name. Lord, I Lift Your Name on High. And back then, I had an ever so slightly higher singing voice, so Ryan was like, dude, for a dude, how do you sing so high pitched? On Tuesday, after we finished at Maya's house, we went to another lady's house and worked on her yards. I edged the gardens and wiped the windows and doors, and she was even nice enough to give us water. Sadly, another group had to finish the rest of our work because we had another project for the next 2 days. On Wednesday and Thursday, after we went to Maya's house, we helped paint the walls of a gym. We only had time to prime the first wall on Wednesday, but the next day another group painted the wall and primed the next so that we could get right back to work once we finished at Maya's house. We actually finished the job with plenty of time to spare, and I remember that was where I left one of my t-shirts for the March for Life and never got it back. Meals! With the exception of Subiaco and after writing this note, also the Tap into Life retreat beat that out as well. We rarely had good food on our retreats and conferences. This place, on the other hand, gave us everything we could have asked for, which is ironic because in the summary, not the summary, the introductory DVDs that they pass out the youth groups before the camp, they always talk about how we should put up with camp food for the week and make it a sacrifice to Jesus. But it's like, I'm not complaining. This is gourmet food to me. So either my standards were really low or they were lying, and most teenagers are picky. Depending on the time and day, we were given cereal, small pizzas, fudge bars, frozen juice, waffles, salad. I didn't eat the salad. Assorted fruit, tacos, burgers, macaroni and cheese, baked potato, tater tots, cake, and plenty of other stuff that I can't even remember. I'm surprised I remembered all that. For every meal, I sat at the same table and the same chair, even if I didn't eat there. And for one of the days, I got to the room first, the same day I met Monica and Reba, and smirked at the rest of the people that showed up a half hour later and had to wait in line for their food. Not only did they have to wait in line, but two of the staff members were dressed in sombreros and those like dress types of things that the Mexican men wear and did like a Mexican dance and was like, hey, 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 it's Taco Tuesday. And me, I was already in there and smirking. I also met some new people in this room, and in the waiting line, yes, and in the waiting line after the comma, and I was honored that Monica and Reba actually sat down at my table and introduced themselves to me. I've never had that honor at any other retreat. Poor me! What the heck? And I am very grateful for them. That's an understatement. I think when I was writing this note, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't bragging. So a lot of the huge life-changing healing moments I didn't write down in this note because I thought that maybe people would think that I was trying to give myself the attention instead of giving the glory to God. So I'll point that out when it comes. One funny moment I remember is when all the guys from Sacred Heart's group, that's the name of our parish, sat together in one group, and Kyle was making a cheeseburger and he accidentally put a smiley face on the burger using the ketchup and mustard. We actually made that a card in a custom apples to apples game. Small group time. This is going to be a short one. Although we rarely got to hang out with our parish group during work, we did have time to spend together after the programs. Julie, the youth leader, asked us various questions such as how our lives would be changed after we got back home. Mine certainly was. And even gave us medals with the Holy Spirit on one side and the CHWC logo on the other side, which I was wearing as I wrote that. During the final night, Julie tossed a ball to each of us, and it was divided into hexagons like a soccer ball, the shape that our right thumb, or in Mr. Core's case, the left thumb, touched. We had to answer that question. Julie repeated the instructions so many times that John pretended to be ignorant, and it was even funnier when Michael's right thumb landed on the instructions. After we finished, we rolled around on the stage until Father Rich told us to stop, which became a running tradition at every subsequent CHWC. I don't think I ever did it after that because I was like so tired, but that particular year, I think I was a little bit more daring and a little less tired, so I thought it was cool. Our skit. Every night, either the staff, the adults, or the teenagers would put on a performance for the audience. They were always hilarious and didn't always have a message. I won't go into detail about all of them. Why not? The he's not choking, he's dead skit, but I think I already put that in the video. But I will tell you about the final skit, which was performed by our group. In the first part of the skit, my brother Michael came onto the scene, not to be confused with the other Michael I mentioned earlier, and Kyle, Rachel, and I made fun of him, and Kyle even threw a paper ball at him. Okay, one detail I forgot to mention is that I only had one day to practice this because I was a late arrival to the mission trip, and when we were told like what to do and we were whispering to sound natural, the guy said, just say some nonsense word over and over again. So he said, for instance, you can just say watermelon silently. So Kyle ended up doing that, but I ended up saying the first passage of the first Harry Potter book, which is Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. So that's what I kept saying when we were whispering. We laughed and mocked him so much that he took a fake gun and put it to his head, but we quickly went over to him and hugged him to tell him that we decided to give him another chance, if only it worked that well in real life. I wasn't in the next scene, but this time one of the girls in my group tripped Valentina, and she was so tired of being picked on that she tried to cut herself with a knife, again a fake one, and took some kind of drug. Eventually she I wrote she threw back of them away. I think I meant to say all of them, and Joanna came over and gave her a hug. In the final scene, we pretended to be drinking and smoking, with candy cigarettes and styrofoam cups, of course, and to add to the effect, Joanna and I pretended to smack cups and miss. That part wasn't actually in the script. We ad-libbed that part. Finally, Katie walked through the line, looking disgusted, and took the cigarettes and cups from us. Another unscripted moment was when I dropped my cigarette and it cracked. I hope no one noticed. We finally took a bow once we were finished. The dance party. Every night there was some kind of special event that happened. Staff testimony night on Monday, Eucharistic Adoration on Tuesday, Four Corners on Wednesday, and there was also a dance party on both Tuesday, and Thursday was also resident testimony night, just in case I forgot to put it in this note. For the dance party, we took all the chairs and placed them in the back of the room, and all the teens, and I think some of the adults, but I don't quite remember that, gathered near the front of the stage. We then danced to spectacular remakes of almost every famous song you can think of by 2010 standards, and we went all out crazy dancing to them. We even formed a train at one point, although I was really hot because I was wearing a hat. I finally placed both my hat and shoulder bag beside the speaker so that I could dance more freely. Finger lights! During the final night, we were all given lights to put on our fingers to shine around the room, and we had to mimic the motions of the woman in the video. It was a lot of fun, and we even got to keep the lights, and it looked mind-blowing on the summary DVD. Eucharistic Adoration. For those of you that aren't Catholic, Eucharistic Adoration is when the Blessed Sacrament is placed in a container similar to a chalice. It's called a monstrance, and people simply adored it because we believe. Oh, I said that in the next sentence. Since we believe that Jesus is truly present in the sacrament, some people fell over, cried, raised their hands, or simply stood still in utter awe. I did all of the above, and I heard Jesus speak various words of advice to me that really helped me, such as cast aside all your worries into the sea. Man, I wish I had remembered that before then, because that would have helped my anxiety. Father Rich later brought it into the room behind the stage, and that's when everything started happening. Unlike Steubenville, we weren't asked to do anything in particular. We could sit, stand, kneel, fall flat on our faces, or put our arms around each other, which, again, I did all of the above. Jesus told me several more great words of advice, and I hope I was able to help the teens by simply being there. It was so awesome that when one of my dorm buddies asked me how I like it, I believe I could only say, wow. I never thought I would experience adoration better than Steubenville, but I finally found a replacement, and just think, 7 years later at my final mission trip, I had an even better adoration than that one, because that was the one where I got miraculously healed. Four Corners. I had heard about Four Corners a little bit from Julie, John, and Rachel, but I never guessed exactly how powerful it would really be. There was something different happening in each corner of the room. The faith corner was a place where an adult could pray for you to have increased faith. I forgot to mention that the adults carried fake candles to make them easier to spot because the room was like in a semi-dark type of state to enhance the holiness. The healing corner was where groups of people could pray for each other. The praying for others corner was where groups of people could pray for their friends. And the reconciliation corner was where we could confess our sins to a priest. In other words, the sacrament of reconciliation. By far the best corner was the healing corner. And this is the legendary story, so let's hear how 13 years in the past Paul described it. I joined a group of girls and the one guy showed up later, so it was all girls at first and freaked me out initially, and we each prayed for each other. The Holy Spirit was really moving me in a way that I'm not even fully aware of. I wanted to be modest, so I didn't describe what I said. What I ended up saying was, I said, Lord, let us see girls not for what they are, but for who they are. And that's why I got the group hug. It was easily the best moment of my life. Although there's the humble part of me coming. Most of the credit goes to the Holy Spirit for inspiring me to say all of those words. And I cut this part out of the original note too, because again, I didn't want to sound like I was bragging, but like after that point, I was basically treated like a celebrity the whole camp. And I I both liked it and didn't like it at the same time because on one hand, I really appreciated how appreciated I was, especially coming off of the way that my youth group had treated me. But on the other hand, I was also like, I still thought I was asexual at the time, and I was also like an adult, so I didn't want anyone to be flirting with me. I didn't want to flirt with anyone, so a couple of times I was worried that maybe like some of the girls had taken it the wrong way. I don't think they did. I think maybe they were flirting at the time, but I think they quickly forgot about me after that. So, at least they eventually realized that it was meant to be strictly platonic and just me like really being filled with the Holy Spirit. The Praying for Others corner was also extremely revolutionary. Although it was similar to the healing group, consisting only of Maggie, Sarah, Jill, and Shelley, and Claire, I forgot to mention Claire in there. Although we had an immensely powerful experience, I also loved it when we talked about the future. And I don't remember much of what was said in that prayer corner, but I do remember vividly really enjoying the way these girls looked at me. Not in like a flirtatious look, but sort of a, we don't think you're this crazy, horrible human being like how I was treated in my youth group. It was like a powerful, perfect acceptance of exactly who I am, no more, no less than a child of God, that kind of look in their eyes. And that's why, even by face blindness standards, I can still vividly see Claire's face in my mind whenever I look back on that week. The reconciliation corner was basically another name for confession, but I still had some great talks with the three girls that were in line with me. Actually, I remember exactly what I said. I said that the next time I saw a girl after I got back from the mission trip, I would say she's beautiful and a child of God and worthy of respect, because I had hated females before that trip, and this trip like really changed my spirit to stop being prejudiced. I forgot exactly what their names were, but I remember that one of them was named Amanda. It's ironic that I was getting all this praise, and right after that I had to tell God all of my sinful aspects. Our free day. Why did I choose to end with the free day? After four corners, that's such a letdown. I don't know, maybe you guys will think it's better. So, at least from the next note, I learned my lesson. On Friday, after Mass and a slideshow, we were able to spend an entire day in Chicago. Here's a summary. First, we went to a museum. There was an underground exhibit where we shrunk to 1/100th of our size and saw huge bugs twice our size and gigantic roots sticking out of the walls. We also went to an exhibit for mammoths, ancient Egyptian tombs, and we even saw a gigantic skeleton of Sue, the world's largest T-Rex. To cap off the evening, we saw a 3D movie about Sue. It wasn't really that great, but the animation was really awesome. Just imagine how much better that animation probably is 13 years later, like 2010? Technology has sure advanced since then. Next, we went shopping. Boring, boring, boring. I'm gonna skip that one. After the others finished shopping and we waited eons for the bus to pick us up, we went to a medieval times dinner and tournament. First, we were given crowns. What is with my hair? And we got our picture taken with the king, and then we were seated according to the color of our crowns, and we watched a bunch of knights get into spectacular sword fights. Some of them were on horseback, too. While they were doing this, we were served chicken, soup, garlic bread, apple pie, baked potato, and some kind of meat, all without silverware. So I think we just had to drink the soup. It also had phenomenal music. I can't even describe how wonderful it was. I wish there was a soundtrack available. After it was all done, the girls got their pictures taken with the black and white knight because they all had a crush on him. Oh, good. I didn't end it with that. I thought that I did, but I forgot that I have a miscellaneous awesome and funny moments section. So here's just a bunch of random things that happened that didn't fit into any particular category. When we were at Denny's for breakfast on Saturday morning, John kept complimenting the waitress. He did the same thing at medieval times. Finally, he even wrote on her dollar bill how beautiful she was. The two Michaels and Kyle had an eating contest at Denny's to see who could eat the most pancakes. Much to my surprise, Kyle won. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that I was the only person in our group that got a particular meal called hush puppies, which were like these sugary pancakes that you could dip in this like syrup type of thing. Like they kind of looked like those baby rattles. And as soon as one of the girls next to me found out that I was having it, all of the girls said, "We're all having that too." So I literally influenced the entire female population of our group, all because I had just something that I thought would be cool. On the ride back, we played 20 questions. We had so much fun because John thought of a hexagon and couldn't give a straight answer for any of our questions. Also, Julie and my brother Michael were mentioned in practically every question, and twice in a row, Michael was the answer. After we got back from Denny's, Mr. Core rolled down the front window, and while a woman and two girls walked by, he blasted the music all the way up and played the kazoo. Because Popple was known for their kazoo playing, so we were all in like the Popple spirit. During free time, a guy came up to me and pretended to shoot me with a gun. I knocked away his gun arm, then hit his arm from below and kept up the fight. When he was about to stab me, I shook hands with him and we bowed to each other. And we didn't speak a single word that entire exchange. A girl, that girl's name's Maggie, I still remember that, came up onto the stage and said she saw God in me, and it got all the girls in my group to cry. Popple sang some great Christian music, but they also had pretty ridiculous songs, such as the Contra Code. I won't sing it for you to avoid embarrassing you all, and I love peanut butter sandwiches. Julie bought at least 2 CDs of their music, and during future events we sometimes played some of Popple's songs, even some that weren't played at the program. Corey, the drummer, compared Jesus' death and resurrection to dipping a strawberry in sour cream and brown sugar. He said that the strawberry represents Jesus because it tastes good. Then the sour cream is his death and crucifixion, and the brown sugar is the resurrection. He also compared reconciliation, aka confession, to diving off of a 30-foot tower. I think I did jump off of a 30-foot tower. At least it felt like it when I went on vacation to meet Isabel. So, Isabel, if you're watching this, let me know if that math is accurate. He said that we're scared at first, but once we get into the water, we want to do it again. I didn't want to do it again because that hitting the water that hard made my stomach hurt. When Katie put on a dinosaur mask at the museum, I said, "Yeah, no, the next person who wears that mask will feel your facial grease." Her reaction was priceless. 2 guys were praying in the bathroom. I forgot to bring a comb, so I had to comb my hair with my hand. Surprisingly, in the pictures, my hair turned out better than it does when I take care of it. Overall, the mission trip was not only a fun experience, but a life-changing one. I have walked away a completely different person, even more so than after certain events in high school that I later regretted. The friends I have met have revolutionized my life in ways that I've never dreamed possible. I cannot wait to go to the next one. Okay, so I was a bit of a cringy writer in that note, but I hope you guys got to experience a couple more interesting moments and stories. Stay tuned for notes of the other mission trips coming up. And I hope you like this format. Special thanks to my patrons Matthew Rakowski, Sploon Ghost, Splatcat, and Scooter Doodle for supporting me on Patreon. I'm getting tired of saying this, but the link's in the description if any others of you have the budget or the willingness to support me. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!